Good evening, everyone. How's my audio? Can you hear me in the back? Sure, can you see the audio on the YouTube? Is it working? There should be a microphone with a little green indicator. Great. So good evening to everyone and everyone out there. I feel a lot of gratitude. Kozan laughs in the background. I wasn't really going to talk about gratitude, but it was just coming up for me as I was sitting here. What a cool thing it is to just be here in front of all of you and practicing with you in this beautiful Zendo at this time when most people, I wonder how many people can be this close to this many people. For all of those of you out there, we're close because we're in a very tight pod. Nobody's going out and doing anything. So we're considered a family unit. Otherwise, we'd all be in masks and distanced. So thank you for my family, for all of you who are here, and to Roshi, Joan, and Wendy up there in the mountains who are part of our family, and Monshin and Chuck who are also part of our family unit, and all of the extended Sangha throughout space and time. So it was a funny, to give a talk before Thanksgiving, it's like you kind of have to give a talk on Thanksgiving, right? Or related to it. But Kozan 2 years ago gave the best talk on Thanksgiving you'll ever give. So I didn't need to do that. He gave it on Dhanaparamita, talked about the Buddha feeding himself to the tigress, and how Molly said she would go do that herself if they went on a walk in the woods. So we'll do that one next time. But in kind of trying to figure out what I was going to talk about, I listened to a couple of Thanksgiving talks that Roshi Joan had given in 2006 and 2008, which are the only other talks besides Kozan's that are on our podcast about Thanksgiving, which was funny. But in this one in 2008, November 27th, it was really interesting. She starts off, "What an extraordinary time we're living in. The golden wind of Obama and the dark wind of war and our economy." If you recall, November 2008 was close to the nadir of the recession. I think NASDAQ had plunged 700% or something, or that seems like a lot.
700% would be probably too much.
Too much, yeah. 70%? Anyway, it was like, so that was in the air, and Obama had just been elected President of the United States, President-elect anyway. And this golden wind carried us through 8 years. It's just so interesting to hear talking about that right now. Of course, it's the dark wind of the pandemic. And the economy is like doing better than it ever has, I guess, or at least the stock market's just going like this. And you're just sitting there like, how is this working? People are sick and dying, and the economy just goes like, or not, the economy and stock market are different, right? Stock market's going like this, economy is not sure. Anyway, she says, "There's a feeling now in 2008 in our world of deep poignancy. There's something about the truth of impermanence that is very present for us as we see this cascade in the markets and the cascade of morale, and the morale that's going up around this election." And I listened to that last week, the morale around the election, and it was just like, wow, history repeats itself sometimes. Or there are certain things that are always true or cycling. So tomorrow's Thanksgiving Day, and we'll be celebrating here together, and many people throughout the country will be celebrating. And it's also important, I think, to know that some people are protesting. It's also a day of atonement and a day of remembering the atrocities that were inflicted on the native peoples of this country. Concurrent with Thanksgiving, there's the National Day of Mourning, which is held in New England. And there's also the Day of Unthanksgiving, which is the same day on the West Coast. I think it's on Alcatraz Island. And they're both protests against this notion that that there was this beautiful gathering of the pilgrims and the Americans, and they helped them, and that may have happened. There's different stories about it. But the thing I think that they want people to know is that the aftermath of that was devastation and persecution and oppression that continues to this day. So as we have our meals and give thanks for all the good that's happened to us, it's also important, I think, to atone for what our ancestors have done and what our forebears have inflicted, and what we can do to make amends for the people of this nation, the First Nations people, and all the oppressed peoples of the world. So on that happy note, I was looking through, sorry, yeah, serious, but real. The gratitude. What in Zen is about gratitude? And there's so many things you could say, but of course I always go to Dogen. And you can't see him up there, I guess, but here he is. And Dogen says, in searching through the Shobogenzo for gratitude, it really comes up just strongly in one fascicle, and that's continuous practice, B. There are two continuous practice fascicles. They were separated at one point. And in that fascicle, so I wrote my text too small, so forgive me, I'm gonna hold it up. This doesn't mean I'm getting old, does it? Oh no. I'll need those glasses. Yudo said he's got these 4X glasses that he can see. So Dogen says, most ways of expressing gratitude may miss the mark. Giving up the life of your body is not enough. A castle is not solid enough, as it can be taken by others or given away to a family. The life of the body can be given to impermanence, a lord, or a crooked way. Therefore, none of these are suitable offerings. Can anybody guess what the only suitable offering is? Come on.
Our heart.
Continuous practice. Continuous practice. Continuous practice, day after day, is the most appropriate way of expressing gratitude. This means that you practice continuously without wasting a single day of your life, without using it for your own sake. Why is it so? Your life is a fortunate outcome of continuous practice from the past. You should express your gratitude immediately. So there it is, continuous practice. And I love that. I don't think I'd read that before, but just this notion of, what does it mean to express gratitude? We recall the good things that have happened, but also we act. Like, what do we do to express our gratitude? And atonement is an interesting valence of that. Atonement for negative things we've done, and perhaps practice what we can give back to ourselves and the world is our way of expressing gratitude. So when I thought about, well, what is continuous practice, specifically here, for us in this community, I thought of the 5 Buddha families mandala. So the 5 Buddha families is a model that I'm going to talk about all night. So I don't need to kind of introduce my introduction, but I wonder if we know the 5 Buddha families, since it's the basis, the kind of the model upon which Jipai is built. So who can tell me? What's the first Buddha family? Joel. Well, what is one of the Buddha families?
Something.
Vajra. Okay,
Vajra.
that's one of them. Thank you.
I said that.
Yeah, fudge, Vajra, same thing. Okay, Vajra. Okay, 1 of 5. Padma. Hey, come on, you got to give it. Get one. Vajra, Padma, so on. Buddha. Karma. Vajra, what do we do? Ratna. Missing mine. Oh, am I Ratna? We'll get into that. So yes, Buddha, Vajra, Padma, Ratna, Karma are the 5 Buddhas that represent those 5 Buddha families. And the Buddha families, there's so many ways of here's a chart that shows all of the kind of permutations, and the Buddha families go across, and here's like the element, the realm, the paramita, the precept, the poison, the wisdom of each Buddha family. And I just, or she says that she quotes somebody that says, Christians love God, Buddhists love lists, and Zen priests love models. Not that kind of model. So, bad joke. Okay. I can't, I have to tell my dad jokes. Cousin says so. Here's another map. What I loved about this one, all right, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, back to the talk. I just have too much material here. I don't know what I'm going to do. So Roshi, there's a few ways that the Buddha families express themselves. Roshi has written this beautiful article or blog on the 5 Buddha families as the mandala of Upaya. And that's how I first learned about them, and that's kind of how they first came to me. So the order of what she has there, which is what I've stated, so Buddha, Vajra, Padma, Ratna, Karma, or practice, study, community, livelihood, and service. That's the order that she has. But where did she get those from? So she says that she learned about the 5 Buddha families from Roshi Bernie and Roshi Eve, Marco. And she already had Upaya at the time, but basically we were doing what we were doing now, back then, and the model fit perfectly, like it was already there. So she said that she just took it up and kind of integrated it in, and based on conversations with Bernie and Eve, they structured it the way it is now. And I feel like I missed a page here. So I wanted to know, where did the 5 Buddha families come from? And in Bernie's book, when I was kind of searching around for 5 Buddha families, I came upon Instructions to the Cook, which is Bernie's book on the supreme meal. And it's Zen master's advice on like life in general. And in his book, he has 5 courses that make the supreme meal. So he never says in the book the 5 Buddha families or the names of the Buddhas or anything like that, but they're unmistakably the 5 Buddha families. He says, according to the principles of the Zen cook, it always consists of 5 main courses or aspects of life. The first course involves spirituality. The second course is composed of study and learning. The third course deals with livelihood. The fourth course is made out of social action or change. And the last course consists of relationship and community. So you'll already notice that the order is switched a little bit. Whereas here we go, community, livelihood, service. He goes livelihood, service, community. And he kind of uses the Padma as the all-encompassing energy for the 5 families. Which might make you think maybe he was a Padma type, Padma Karma perhaps, Bernie Glassman. So, but where did Bernie get it? Did he get it from the Vajrayana lineage through Chogyam Trungpa, or did he get it from Zen? I was curious. I couldn't find anything online, so I wrote to Eve, who kind of generously wrote me back. She said, I remember that Bernie began to work with the 5 Buddha families in around 1986. He definitely trained at Naropa, and especially in their Buddha energy rooms out in Boulder. That's all I can say. Being the engineer he was, he then started fitting his various efforts in various fields in that model, and sometimes it took a little stretching and finagling and switching. But he loved it as a model, just like he loved models generally. So that was from Roshi Eve Marco. Thank you very much. So that's one place, at least, that he got it. And she talks about the Buddha energy rooms, which are really interesting. I've never seen them, but apparently at Naropa, there's these 5 rooms that are colored the color of these families. So like Padma's red, for example, and they have a shape of a window. Each has a different shape. And you're supposed to go in there and you get in a certain posture and you really kind of feel the energy of that. It's called Maitri practice, right? And so that just sounds fascinating. So Bernie must have gone and done that around the time I was born. And then he took that and he changed it around. So where did those come from? the Maitri rooms and Chogyam Trungpa's idea. I mean, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche studied Vajrayana from a young age, and I don't know where he got all his stuff, but in his book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, which maybe some of you read, I think it's the first place that he talks about it, and you can let me know if there's an earlier time he mentions it. But I thought I would look at that, and then he just has a few pages on it. But then after that, Irene Rockwell, who's a student of his, or a student of Shambhala at least, wrote The Five Wisdom Energies, and then more books after that that really fleshed out the Buddha families. And in Trungpa's exposition of them, and then Rockwell's, they're kind of like, they're more personality types. So in Roshi Joan and Roshi Bernie's rendition, you feel they're this model of community. They're a model of organization. And then Trungpa and Rockwell is more like a model of your interior organization. You're the energies that are alive in you and that you express yourself with. So Trungpa says, in the tantric tradition, energy is categorized in 5 basic qualities, or Buddha families: Vajra, Ratna, Padma, Karma, and Buddha. Notice the order is different again. Each Buddha family has an emotion associated with it, which is transmuted into a particular wisdom or aspect of the awakened state of mind. The Buddha families are also associated with colors, elements, landscapes, directions, seasons, with any aspect of the phenomenal world, as this chart, is an expression of. So for example, the Vajra, and the poison of Vajra is anger. And the wisdom expression is mirror-like primordial wisdom. And it's fascinating to look at that, and how does the teaching is, as I've understood it, anger by itself has the seed of primordial wisdom, mirror-like wisdom within it. It's there present, and it's occluded by the mental afflictions, the kleshas. So if you can remove the klesha part of it, you're left with just that energy, which is fiery and bright and crystal clear. So that's an example from the Vajra. Rockwell explains a little bit further. In 5 Energies work, we often talk as if people were one type or another. Thus I refer to Vajra people and Padma people. However, although certain individuals may manifest a particular family vividly, it is probably more accurate to say that so-and-so displays a lot of Vajra energy, rather than to say she's a Vajra person. Although someone's style of behavior might display one particular energy clearly, the other energies are always at play. It takes awareness, time, and practice to really understand the full range of energies within ourselves. We are all very colorful. And when she says we're all very colorful, I just think of Bernie Glassman, He came here in 2015 to transmit to us the Gate of Sweet Nectar liturgy. And he wore a rakusu that was similar to this one, except it was very bright. It was the 5 Buddha families, and it was white, blue, yellow, green, red. And I kind of made a field that was similar to that and darkened it a bit so that it wasn't quite so flashy, but Bernie's was flashy. And then all of our Netherlander Zen peacemakers have these really bright, flashy rakusus. It's pretty brilliant. So he was a colorful person, and he came here and he taught that. And as you'll recall, having done the Gate of Sweet Nectar just a week ago or a couple weeks ago, we embody the 5 Buddha families when we go up to do this ceremony. And I wondered, well, did that come from Trungpa, or where did that come from? And then I started getting, that's why I don't really have a talk, is because I just got lost in researching kind of Zen liturgical history, and it's just fascinating. So I just want to share a little bit of what I found. So no, it doesn't come through the Trungpa lineage, the 5 Buddha families and the Gate of Sweet Nectar. So the Gate of Sweet Nectar that Roshi Bernie gave us, he did make up parts of it, but actually a lot of it is traditional. And by traditional, it comes from a liturgy called the Kanramon, which is Gate of Sweet Nectar, or Ambrosia Gate. And the original Gate of Sweet Nectar, as we have it now, was put together by a monk called Menzan Zueho in 1706. And Menzan Zueho was a was a kind of textualist, or a person or a scholar who went back to the original texts to see what Dogen really wanted to say. And apparently he was the one that really popularized Dogen in the Soto school. And so before him, there wasn't so much Dogen studies. So Menzan apparently was the one who made Dogen study popular, and why today, he's kind of, this is also called Dogen Zen, Soto Zen, that is. And, but where did he get that? So he kind of put it together, but it came from a much earlier liturgy that goes back at least 400 years into one that's called, that's from an Ambrosia Gate liturgy described in the Huanzhuan Jingui from 1317. So this is a Chinese collection of pure rules from in China, Chinese monastery. And that one apparently is attributed to a monk named Bukong, which interestingly means like no emptiness, Bukong. And Bukong lived in the 600s. So that's kind of where supposedly the initial Kanramon came from. But then that one supposedly came because Ananda had a bad dream. So this is in the Buddha's time. So Ananda had a dream one night that his mother was in hell, hanging upside down, being tortured. And he just woke up absolutely distraught. And he came to the Buddha and he said, Lord Buddha, please, what can I do for my mother? I think she's in hell, hanging upside down. And the Buddha said, do this liturgy. And he gave him the Kanramon right there, feeding the hungry ghosts. So I don't know if the five Jnana the five Jnani Buddhas or the five Buddha families were in that original one, but they were certainly in the 1317 version. And of course in the 1706, and then the version we do today. So it's really cool that those two streams of Buddha families come together in that liturgy. And it's also really interesting to look at what they're expressing. And I had a little research project I was doing a few years ago, looking at the original, those Dharanis we do. So the Gate of Sweet Nectar is full of Dharanis. Dharanis are these incantations or magical spells, you could call them, that have effects. So for example, Namu taho nyorai no boba gyabate harabota ara tan no yatata gyata yajo ken tongo fukuchi en man. And that's from Sanskrit. And apparently Menzan is the one who found out what the Sanskrit was and changed some of those words so that they were closer to the Sanskrit. Of course, Japanese is never going to sound exactly like Sanskrit. And my pronunciation of Sanskrit, I'm sure, is abominable. But just for example, that thing that I just read in Sino-Japanese, Sanskrito-Sino-Japanese, would be Namuta, it would be Namu Bhagavata Praputa Ratnaya Tathagataya. Isn't that cool? I'm such a nerd. Okay. And then luckily for us, we say what the English is. Being one with all Buddhas in the livelihood of spheres, extending generosity, perfection of both body and mind appears. And so these incantations are designed to elicit this. So you sing this one, which is the invitation of the Ratna family, and perfection of both body and mind appears. However, really interesting, if you go back to the original Kanramon, or not the original, but the Menzan Kanramon, some of those results of the incantations are switched. So here, when we say perfection of both body and mind appears, that was actually, and here it's in the Ratna incantation, that was actually attributed to the Vajra incantation. So three of them are switched and two of them are the same. Which I just find that fascinating. And I asked Eve about that years ago, and she said, yeah, he switched things around. But if you look at why he switched them around, it does actually make sense. And I will actually get to the families here. How much time? Okay, we're good. Okay. So yeah, so Bernie came and and so what Bernie did, he talked to his teacher, Maizumi Roshi, who was on the one hand a traditionalist and on the other hand totally progressive. And Maezumi Roshi said to him, you need to make this liturgy your own. You need to make it real for you in this day and time. And so Bernie added lots of things and kind of moved things around, but it's amazing how much of it is really the same, with the same spirit of feeding the hungry ghosts. In Japanese Soto temples, they do this, they do the Kanramon either every day or every month. I mean, they do it frequently. It's like a standard part of the liturgy. And it's most of the time, it's in order to feed your ancestors. So parishioners would come to the temple and chant this, and like give donations and get the mantra chanted for their ancestors. And Bernie wanted to make it for all hungry spirits, and not just the hungry spirits that are dead, but the hungry spirits that are alive. And he gave this whole teaching in 2015, which you can find on our podcast, explaining how he came to this. And it's just really cool to revisit that. And people asked some really interesting questions in that, like, well, what about the dancing? Was that part of the traditional thing? He's like, no, that was, we were doing the trumpets and the horns and stuff. And Roshi Enkyo, he said she was a dancer. And she said, well, why isn't there dancing? He said, there should be dancing. And so now we dance. I know, maybe they danced before. Now we just kind of like, I don't know what we do. We just go crazy. If anybody's seen our Gate of Sweet Nectars, I'd love to compare them with no comparing mine. But we have a lot of fun. We'll do it in 2 weeks. So, let's see. So now, if there's time, I'd love to visit each of the Buddha families from these 4 lenses. There's the lens of the Upaya Mandala, the lens of Bernie's Supreme Meal, Instructions to the Cook, the lens of the Gate of Sweet Nectar, and the lens of the Trungpa and Rockwell. What do you think? We've got 15 minutes. So, Roshi writes in her article, first there's the Buddha family, or our spiritual practice. For our residents, meditation practice is the very foundation of everything that happens at Upaya. It is the very heart of Upaya. We offer residents in our extended Sangha 3 periods of meditation daily, 3 month-long practice periods, 5 or 6 sessions a year, Zazen Kais, and half-day sitting programs. I'm glad to say all of that is still happening, though we don't have so many kind of scholastic programs coming in, or any, we're doing them online. All of our Zen stuff is still happening, and you can join online for all these programs, which is wonderful. So Buddha family is practice for this kind of look at things. And Bernie says very similar thing. The first course, spirituality, helps us to realize the oneness of life and provides a still point at the center of all of our activities. This course consists of certain spiritual practices. They could be prayer, or listening to music, or dance, or taking walks, or spending time alone. Anything that helps us realize or reminds us of the oneness of life, of what Buddha meant when he said, how wonderful, how wonderful. He's referring to that story of the Buddha saw the morning star and said, how wonderful. All beings are simultaneously awakened. And that's on the day of Rahatsu, which is coming up. So if you'd like to experience that moment, what is it, 1 week, 2 weeks? Oh, I wonder if Gate of Sweet Nectar is on Rahatsu. Could be close. So that's kind of the Maha aspect. Trungpa says, Buddha is associated with dullness and has an all-pervading quality because it contains and goes with all the rest of the emotions. And Rockwell says, the wisdom of Buddha energy is a sense of all-pervasive space, vast, boundless, and wakeful. As the most fundamental energy, Buddha provides the space for all other energies to manifest. It is completely alive and awake without purpose or direction, an awareness that has no bias. It has a sense of just being in fundamental peace. It is existence itself. It accommodates nothing and everything, emptiness and fullness. And Irene Rockwell has these long chapters that beautifully go through the feeling of the energy of these families. And I'm just kind of clipping the first bit, which kind of says the positive aspect, and the last bit, which says the negative aspect, so you can get a feel for both. So Buddha people fear the unknown and want their world to be simple and predictable. Their lives can be very repetitive, sticking to the same routines every day. They reduce the parameters of their world so it becomes small and safe. They get mired in inertia. They can play deaf, dumb, and blind. Sometimes the easy way to think of the Buddha family is on the good side, it's like you're spacious, you're open, you're present. And on the bad side, you're spaced out, you're spacey, or you're just like dull. So then we move on to the Vajra family. Roshi says, the Vajra family, representing study, focuses on intellectual development. At Upaya, we concentrate not only on Buddhist and Zen studies, but also the importance of Western science and psychology. So we really get, sometimes Roshi calls Upaya a small university or a mini university, and we get this wide range of teachings, but they're all related in some way to the Dharma, which is so cool because you get like neuroscientists and psychologists and therapists and so many other things that come through and give teachings, and we can absorb that and take it in and bring it to our practice. And that's the Vajra. So Bernie says, the second course is study or learning. Study provides sharpness and intelligence. People usually study before they begin something, but I like my study of things, be they livelihood, social action, or spirituality, to be simultaneous with my practice of livelihood, social action, or spirituality. In this way, study is never merely abstract. It's beautiful, you're living it in the moment. Rockwell, I'll just skip the some of these because we're running out of time, but Rockwell says, in its open, brilliant, and pure state, Vajra energy is crystal clarity. It is associated with the color blue, the element water, and the sense of sight. Vajra energy reflects its surroundings like a calm, clear pool of water without any distortion or bias. Thus, Vajra wisdom is mirror-like. It sees things as they are. And it's interesting, well, that's kind of different than studying. What's the relationship? Like, obviously there is one, but it's the way they put it is coming from both, like two different sides, the outside and the inside. And where they meet, I think, is like right in our practice of study. We're studying for clarity. We're not just studying to I don't know, have an interesting talk or something. When Vajra energy becomes constricted, solidified, or closed, the desire to see things clearly becomes a neurotic compulsion. There's tremendous fear of being surprised, confused, or overwhelmed by irrational or chaotic circumstances. This can lead to a tense alertness and strong need for control, which is fed by denial of disturbing or confusing forces. Vajra people panic when they don't understand. Answers are their security. And to a certain extent, I think, I don't know if it's this book or elsewhere, our culture is a kind of Vajra culture. Like, we're into knowing, we're into data, and we're into aggression and anger. So, all of us have all of these qualities. But when people aren't Vajra, it's almost like, what country are you from? And so, yeah. Now here's where it gets kind of interesting with the order of things. So in Roshi's rendition, the third Buddha family is Padma. This is associated, she says, this is associated with our community life and with the arts. Our residents are at the very center of our global community. Their practice is an example to thousands of people who come to Upaya and watch us on Upaya, and their service makes it possible for our larger family to be woven into the mandala. Moreover, their service is an example of what it is to live with strength and heart in a community and to live according to the precepts, that is, to cherish each other and to be respectful. That's you guys. Bernie says, so for Bernie, Padma is the last course. The last course is the course of relationship and community. This is the course that brings all the seemingly separate parts of our life together into a harmonious whole. It's the course that turns all the other courses, spirituality, livelihood, social action, and study, into a joyous feast. So Bernie he just brought the Padma in and made it everything. And in the Kan Ramon, he actually uses the Ratna incantation to describe the Padma. Unifying spheres, integrating all families, wealth and wisdom are in abundance. So that's for Padma in the Kan Ramon, but it's really Ratna. So he says both. So for Roshi's, it's community, right? And community, of course, is relationship. But when we go to the Trungpa Rockwell, we see it's really about relationship. At its best, Padma energy opens to us the immediacy and preciousness of each moment. Padma people want to have strong contact with what is attractive and feel it fully. They delight in intimate connections. They want to become one with the world. They want things to be fiery, hot, intensely red. Padma people have a keen sensitivity to the ambient tone of things and the dynamics between people. They are able to dissolve the boundary between themselves and others. They are full of life. When Padmas lose touch with their inherent joy, they become desolate. This disappointment can be fearsome. Padma's fiery energy lures, but it can also kill, like the flame that incinerates the moth. Padma people want their world hot, spicy, and emotional. Their passionate, intense desires can turn into obsessive clinging. So like, wow, that sounds different from like friendly community. But it's all in relationship. Like, what is your relationship to relationship? How do we treat each other? How are we in it? Of course, Zen Center is not exactly designed for hot, spicy, fiery relationships. So it's not emphasized in the teachings. But it's interesting to see though that the underlying energy of that community feeling is a kind of fire, is a love, an intense love that we cultivate for each other. And then we come to Ratna. Some people accuse me of being a Ratna type. I resemble that remark. The Ratna family represents our livelihood. Upaya has a livelihood related to our educational and retreat programs. The residents engage in and support this form of right livelihood. This model also provides an opportunity for us to share the Dharma and to engage with global community that in turn helps to support Upaya. The Ratna family is also the resource of this very place. Upaya's beautiful environment includes the food we make for people, which we have become so well known for, our beautiful gardens, and the buildings. Residents learn to deeply appreciate beauty as a resource for the human spirit. So this livelihood, I just want to say as an aside, the livelihood of having retreat programs completely ended in March. We stopped having pay-for programs. We only had like one online paid program for $100. Other than that, it's all been freely given. And I have to say that the generosity of the people that came to our online programs was breathtaking. And I just feel on behalf of Upaya and for all of us, such gratitude that we've been able to maintain our life and livelihood the way we have just on donations, pretty much completely on donations. It's just, thank you for all of you who have given, including you. So Bernie says, once we have established the clarity that comes from stillness and study, we can begin to see how to prepare the third course, which is livelihood, the course that sustains us in the physical world. I kind of quote a lot from Irene's piece on Ratna for some reason, but Ratna's wisdom, I'm going to just read a little bit. Ratna's wisdom is equanimity. It needs nothing. The world is sufficient, abundant and plentiful. A golden yellow color that radiates richness and characterizes Ratna energy. Its element is earth. At its best, Ratna energy is deeply settled, full, and satisfied. When Ratna people lose their sense of fullness and richness, they sink into a poverty mentality marked by the perpetual neediness, the hungry ghost realm. They absorb what is around them like a sponge. They feed on it. So in this, the two sides of Ratna can almost be opposite. Like on the one hand, the fulfilled kind of just overflowing abundance provides this kind of stability that you almost think was a Buddha. And I thought maybe I represented a bit of the Buddha family. And I came to realize that no, I have very little Buddha family, which is why I have to practice a lot more. And the Ratna side, though, expresses itself negatively in the kind of Amazon mind. Which is also, I think, part of our culture to a certain extent, but I'm working on it. And finally, we're almost out of time, but finally, the karma family is our service to others. This includes every person who comes through our temple doors or our cloud zendo doors. We also have service programs for the vulnerable, including dying, grieving people, those who are incarcerated, and those who are unsheltered. As well, we serve Rohingya refugees in Nepal and Himalayan people living in remote areas where there is no healthcare. Residents have the opportunity to serve meals or offer meditation in homeless shelters and prisons here in Santa Fe. And we train healthcare providers and chaplains as part of our Karma family work. Sometimes residents have gone with me to Nepal to serve in the Nomads Clinic, and all the teachings about how to serve the world are available to the residents. Sometimes residents will ask, well, especially right now, what service are we doing? And thanks to Quinn and the kitchen team and all of us who are putting together these meals for unsheltered folks, we are still actually doing that service, that real kind of external service. But I think that question of like, well, what service are we really doing? It ignores the kind of huge service of what practice means for people in the world. And I know you know this, so preaching to the choir a little bit, but just to remember and recall that every time you walk in the Zendo and you bow a certain way, that can be the moment that somebody sees you, that sees your practice and is inspired to do something, to learn, to study, to be with dying people. The ripple effects of our practice at Upaya are just boundless. I mean, ripple effects are always boundless, I suppose, but the way that practice is perceived in the world really helps. And I know Roshi gets emails all the time, and other people write us saying how much they benefit just from the simple sitting we do. And so I know it's tough to have a camera sometimes kind of watching us all the time when we're in Zazen, but thanks to our wide community, we've had 24,000 people join us on online programs this year. That's more than 10 times the number of people that usually come through our doors. So we've been able to touch the hearts and minds of others through our practice. And thank you to all of you who are showing up for those teachings. Rockwell says, the wisdom of karma energy is all accomplishing action, the completion of whatever needs to be done. At their best, karma people do things effortlessly and appropriately. They are synchronized with the world in harmony with all activity. Karma is associated with the color green and the element wind. That tanka of green Tara is an expression of karma. In neurotic mode, karmas are driven by the need for action. They are overly energetic, restless, and speedy. Like gusting wind, they move haphazardly and indiscriminately and are impatient if they are interrupted or blocked. They panic as if to say, do something, do something. They frantically create tasks. They live with perpetual nervous tension from constantly moving. This sounds to me almost more our kind of modern culture family. We're like Vajra karma. All the more reason why to create balance. I named this talk Life in the Balance. How do we create a balanced life for ourselves? If we're already Vajra and karma, okay, let's bring in the community aspect. Let's bring in the love. Let's bring in the practice, the deep practice, and let's bring in the service. How do we help others? And by cultivating the other parts of our energies, and why I think both of these views, the kind of self-personality view of the Buddha families and the community kind of the mandala view of them is so cool. You can bring them together. What do you have to cultivate for yourself to balance out your energies? And where are you needed in the overall mandala to create a balanced life, both in our mandala here and in the world? So this is our continuous practice, our expression of gratitude to the world. And I think since Roshi designed the place as a 5 Buddha families mandala, it behooves us to kind of study it and learn more about it. And this was just a really brief introduction. And I'm happy to discuss more with anyone. And I know Nicole and others have really studied it deeply and can talk about the various permutations and what might you be? Maybe you're a karma type. So that was the talk. And I want to end with a poem by Joy Harjo, who I just learned about from the wonderful Sit, Walk, Write retreat with Kozan and Natalie Goldberg. And I was looking for a Thanksgiving poem, and this one just reminded me so much of the supreme meal. Joy Harjo is internationally renowned performer and writer of the Muskogee Nation, the Creek Nation, and was named the 23rd Poet Laureate of the United States in 2019. Perhaps the world ends here. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners. They scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it. We make women. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies, and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor, falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth on this table and have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table while we are laughing and crying, eating the last sweet bite.